Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah, Perek Tes, Halacha Aleph, in Perek Shi. Dover Borum Mefurish B'Torah. It is clear. It is something with an item which is clear and clarified in the Torah. She mitzvah imedes l'olam l'olam e'olamim. That the Torah is a mitzvah which stands forever and for eternity. Ein lo leishinu v'lo giroin. There's never any change to it, nor any lessening of it. V'lo tesefes and nothing more. Shenam es kol hadover, as it says all of this. Now let's go to the Peirush. The mitzvah of the Torah is mitzvah that's forever. That means that the mitzvahs, even in the future, will be so. Yavitz questions this from other places. The Rambam says that Olam Haba is a place that you don't have mitzvahs. The neshamas are sort of in abeyance, existing from the rays of the Shekhinah, of the Holy Presence. And therefore he explains the intent of the Rambam is that in this world, as the Torah says, V'avodai lo olam, it says he should serve him forever, or like Hannah said to her son Shmuel, V'yesha sham ad olam, he should stay there forever. And actually that's why the Mefarshim explain that Shmuel was 53 years old when he passed away, because olam is 50 years. The Torah has no shinui, no change, yiur, no lessening, tesefes, nothing added. Shenema, it says in Volume 13a, all of this that I command you, that tishmerun la'asos, you should keep to do. You should not add to it, do not take lessen it. From Rashi in over there, it would seem that only if you add or lessen within the mitzvah, you are transgress in the concept of forbiddenness of adding or lessening. Meaning, if you take 5 species instead of 4 on sukkahs, but if you add a whole mitzvah, you don't transgress. And so the Baal Ikrim would seem that the forbiddenness is only to change the style of the mitzvah, not to add or lessen from it. But the Ramban here, and the Ramban in Volume 4.2, is of the opinion that if you add a mitzvah, or you diminish a mitzvah, you transgress as well on this forbiddenness of adding or detracting. And therefore, the Chachamim tried to find what to rely on, that Esther could be written as Megillas Esther, since it's a new mitzvah, and it's included in the issue of adding to the Torah. They needed to find a place in the Torah that permitted it. In one fact, the Rambam and the Rambam, Maimonides and Achmonides disagree. If a Novi comes along and says a mitzvah of his own, according to Rambam, the Isur is Baal Torah. So in the Ramban, it's also because a Novi is not permitted to add anything from now. Then they transgress 2 separate things, whether you transgress the fact of adding, or you transgress because the Novi said so. The forbiddenness of adding is said twice. One time it says "Loisei sifu," do not add, and one time it says "Loisei safe." And the Guru explains it's written twice that if you add a mitzvah to the mitzvahs, in Nehemiah it says it says that which is visible to us and to our children forever, to do all the words of this Torah. That what the Torah was given is to do it completed forever. You learn from this that all the words of the Torah are commanded to be done forever. And that's what it says, a decree of eternity for all your generations. The Bala Ikram writes, there are those who want to prove the eternity of Torah's Moshe. From this, that at times the Torah says Chukas Olam, for enactment forever, or the sechem for all your generations, oila oilam, or forever. Even though the Bala Ikrim doesn't say his intent with that to tell us with that. It would seem his intent is to what the Rambam says here, that he disagrees, and only mitzvahs, those that say la'olam, have to be forever. It could be that other mitzvahs would become nullified. And also, at the times, we find that the olam, we add olam, and similar, are stated for a set time, like in the Mishlei. Al tasek vul olam asher osu avisecho. Do not trespass the borders, the eternal borders which your predecessors made. Even though it says olam, forever, that it means there only the time of your forefathers. And olamim doesn't mean forever, because the Rambam said regarding himself, Agur b'elecho olamim. I shall dwell in your house forever. Yeshayahu ko ala Yeshua v'sancherev tshuas olamim. That's called a tshuas olamim. Furthermore, he writes in the name of Chizdoi that that's not the root and the source of the Torah's Moshe. It's a belief that we should believe that there will never be a change in Torah. V'nema, it says in Devarim 30:12, the Torah is not found in heaven. This teaches us that it's not in heaven. Even if a prophet comes, he can't change it because it's no longer in heaven. Torah's Kahanim, they say it from they derive it from the Pasuk Bamidbar 36:13. These are the commandments and the judgments which Hashem commanded Moshe, to tell you that only these mitzvahs and not more. And not only there's no right to add, HaKadosh Baruch himself will not add anything, even through a prophet. Therefore, the prophet says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent him to add a mitzvah to diminish or to explain a different explanation from what we have, Kabbalah, we have received through the generations. That is he's definitely a Navi Sheker. And that's built on the basis that a Navi cannot add anything from the time the Torah was sealed. The source of the which we derive from the Pasuk Lev Shamayim, it's not in heaven, it's found in Bava Metzia 59b. And because the Mishnah cites this, dear Rabbi Eliezer, I want to disagree with Tanur Shalach Noi, with the Tanur Shalach Noi. This is a Tanur is an oven. It's 9 tvachim high, and it becomes tomei. You have to break it so you can divide it up into 3 parts. And Tanur Shalach Noi is where they divide it up into 3 parts, and then they still use it by putting sand between each part and replacing it. And there, Rabbi Eliezer said it's tahor, because once you break it, it's tahor. And the Chacham said, no, it's tomei. The others of Basko, at that point, that Basko came out from heaven and announced, Halacha like Rabbi Eliezer. Yeshua stood up and said, that after the Torah was written, it's not in heaven, even if heaven tells us that Rabbi Eliezer is right, we don't listen to it. So Lechem Mishnah questions why the Rambam learned the Pasuk of Shemayim as a source that is forbidden. The Gemara learns from the Pasuk Elam Mitzvahs, and the answer is that the Rambam's way of writing was always to bring a Pasuk different than the Gemara if it gives more greater clarity. Because the Mishnah also writes that the main source is Elam Mitzvahs. However, the Chidah writes that it could be that we derive it from the Pasuk Lev Shamayim, because that's the way the Gemara in Tmura 16a says that 3,000 halachas were forgotten during the period of mourning from Moshe Rabbeinu. Yeshua didn't want to ask it from Shamayim because Lev Shamayim. So Shmuel said to Amuloi. So they said to the Amor Shmuel, shall go ahead and ask. Amolahem Elam Mitzvahs. says Elam mitzvahs. The Novi is not allowed to make a new mitzvah, and that's what the Rambam wanted to learn because it's more mufureshus. Another reason that the Rambam decided to say this posik, the Machon says the difference is the Elam mitzvah tells us that a Novi cannot do something new mitzvah. The Rae Gann teaches us that even mitzvahs that we already know, we forgot, you can't learn from the Shemayim. Therefore, the Rambam said this halacha from Abba Shemayim. On the very idea of the Novi and his elevation on other people, that he can't do the side issues of the Torah, you have to look in the Hagdama or the Peirush HaMeir to the Rambam. Therefore, therefore, the Rambam continues, if a person, whether he's from the nations of the world or from Israel, will get up and do a moifis, a wonder or a sign, from the Netziv, it says from here, and Hamikdavi mentions it in Dvarim 18:20, only if he does first a sign or a wonder, he causes people to believe when he says that then he's chayav, then he's liable for that, for choking. But not every idiot that comes along and says that God sent him is considered a Navi Sheker. That saves a lot of people's lives. That would seem from the Rambam that there is prophecy even by the nations of the world, as he mentioned earlier, like the Baruch does prophesy through man. It would seem even non-Jews. And so he writes also in the Yeros Taimon on the friends of Eoiv. Tzeif Hana'am is Balda Rashuchi, Alifas Ataimoni. They were prophets even though they were not from the Jewish prophets. What the Posuk says in Devarim 18:15, a Novi from amongst you, from your brothers, like myself, Hashem will send to you, and you should listen to him. It doesn't mean that only from Yisrael there will be prophets, and not from the nations of the world. But it teaches us that the prophecy does not dwell except in its Yisrael. And to Am Yisrael there is an advantage and a height over those of other nations. However, it could be that the Rambam intends, he's talking about before the giving of Torah. From Moshe Rabbeinu said about Kodesh Baruch Hu that he should not have this divine presence reside on other nations. It does not reside only on Bnei Yisrael. Therefore, if a Navi comes to deny Torah's Moshe, it must be from among Klal Yisrael, because we only have to believe in a prophet from Klal Yisrael, except from Bilam, who had a specific task, so that people, the nations of the world would not be. In other words, God always places sort of one Zelu Mitzvah. There should be a balance, and therefore the nations of the world should not be able to say, if we had a prophet, we would have bettered our ways. Now, the HaMelech questions, it is not written that Ben Noach is warned not to say prophecy that's false, and that he has a death penalty. And furthermore, there's a question, Bnei Noach are given the death penalty even without warning, because the very fact that the Torah forbade it is their warning. And since there's no warning, how can they kill a Novi Sheker with Chenek? And he explains, the Adonai explains that the non-Jew is given death for his prophecies because something happened to Jewish people by him. Just like when a Jew has a relationship with a non-Jewish woman, which is forbidden to him, she would be killed because she caused something terrible to happen to Yisrael. However, there's no source to this. The Maggid Mishnah wants to rely on what Moshe commanded to kill the Bnei Moav that caused Bnei Yisrael to sin as the source for this Rambam statement. Yisdavi Yad HaMelech. The Rambam isn't clear if Yisrael can accept prophecy from a non-Jewish prophet. His thoughts, his logic dictates that they're not allowed to, because the Torah says, a Novi, a prophet amongst your brethren, such as myself. Moshe Rabbeinu says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will establish for you and you listen to him. It could be that does not come to negate the possibility that there will be prophets from other nations, but to tell us that we are not obligated to listen to that Novi from other nations. There are those that point out from the words of the Rambam, how could they be liable for the death penalty by a Novi Sheker, by a false prophet, when he's from the nations of the world? Who transgressed any of the mitzvahs always have the death penalty of sword, not of choking. And Shlomo Eger says that the intent of the Rambam is that choking is to Yisrael, but for Noach certainly it would go back to the penalty of sword. And if he comes and says Hashem Sholchoi, that God sent him a mitzvah, to add a mitzvah, or to mitzvah, or to diminish one mitzvah, or to farish the mitzvah in our mitzvahs, or to explain in any of the commandments of all the commandments, Peirush HaMeir, an explanation that we did not hear from Moshe Rabbeinu, Oisha Omer, when he says Sho'oisah mitzvahs, those mitzvahs Shenistaru ben Yisrael, that Klal Yisrael were commanded, Einon la'olam l'dorei doros, and not forever and for generations. And the mitzvahs lefi zman hayu, they were only for a certain period. Harei novi sheker, he is a false novi. Sharibo lahakrish nevuos shel Moshe, because he's coming to deny the prophecy of Moshe, which was eternal, as we mentioned earlier in Perek Ches. Misosi bechenek, and his penalty is with choking. Chizda writes in Sanhedrin 89b, but according to Rav Amnuna, he would have the death penalty of stoning. The reason Rambam Paskins like Rav Chizda that it's choking, because he was the Rebbe of Rav Amnuna. Al shehezid l'davar b'shem Hashem al v'shitzivo, his death penalty is because he intentionally spoke words in the name of Hashem that was not commanded. Shubor Shemoi Tzil Moshe, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, blessed is his name, commanded Moshe Rabbeinu, Sha'amitzvah Azois, this Torah that we have, as we find in Dvarim 29:28, Lonu is for us, L'vonenu and our children, Ad Olam forever, V'loi Ish El V'yechazev, and God is not a person that he should change his mind, and therefore there is no change. In Hilchos Tshuva, Perek Gimel Halacha Ches, Rambam counts three who are called apikosim, and among them is the who denies the prophecy of Moshe Rabbeinu. Three deny Torah, who says there's no Torah from Hashem. Even one posuk, even one word. If he says Moshe said it be of his own volition, he is denying Torah. So he denies the explanation, and that's Torah Sheba'al, the oral Torah, or he denies the sages of Torah, of the oral tradition, as did Tzaddik Ubaisus. One who says that the HaKadosh Baruch Hu changed one mitzvah with a different mitzvah, and the Torah is no longer valid, but it was valid at the time of its giving, such as the Islam. All of these three is considered denying Torah. Everything that the Rambam mentions in Hilchos Tshuva by those who are deniers and apostates, he mentions it regarding the false prophets. That in Yesodei HaTorah he emphasizes that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent them to tell their prophecy, and therefore he is a false prophet because he says God sent him. He gets choking. If somebody denies Torah, he's speaking on his own, not in the name of Hashem, therefore he doesn't have choking. This concept that you cannot add or diminish from Torah's Moshe, Ram writes in other places, in Hilchos Mamrim, Perek Beis Halacha Tes, Hilchos Melochim, Perek 11:13, And there he explains that the Chazal say you shouldn't add to mitzvahs of Torah. What they did was only boundaries. And also in the 13 principles of the Rambam, he says in the 8th one, to believe with a full belief that the entire Torah that's found by us was given to Moshe Rabbeinu. And the 9th one is that there will not be any other Torah ever from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Bala Ikrim, in the 3rd Maimah, Parak 20, says, what is the need for the 9th one? After he says, Moshe Rabbeinu, the master of all the prophets, and you can't deny him. If you can't deny him, certainly you can't change his words. And the answer he gives is that the 9th comes from the 8th, that your person should not come to say that in the future there will be a prophet like him. Therefore, the Rambam has to tell us another principle. The Torah itself will not be changed, even though it says Mashiach will be nearly like Moshe Rabbeinu. And this proof is in the Bryce and Teres Kahanim at the end of Chukoisai, and the Posik Eila Mitzvahs HaMishpotim. These are the commandments and the rules that tells us that a prophet is not permitted to make something new from that point on, which God commanded in the hands of Moshe, that the agent was the agent of his person who sent him. So the eternity of Torah and mitzvahs has to do with the agent, which is Moshe Rabbeinu. Therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu is greater than any Navi that will ever come to be in the world or ever was.